Hi, I'm Jason Maskell from TameTornado.com, and today I want to demonstrate the new Destructible Mesh Editor I've been working on the last 6 weeks or so. I'm an independent game developer, and when I went to incorporate destructible meshes into my game, I was pretty disappointed with the lack of features in the editor. So I set out to fix that. I think I have. Let's do a quick demo of authoring some assets. Please excuse my lack of imagination with assets. I am a programmer. Okay, so first off, we're going to make a cube. So, as we used to, we right-click and create destructible mesh. So open here, and if you select it, for some reason the camera starts in the middle. I probably still have to fix that. Okay, so what you see here is the new UI. On the left is the tab related to submeshes. Destructible mesh can have one or more submeshes, and one of those submeshes can be flagged as a core mesh. You can see the flags and transform here. So you can see here in the submission, you have selected a submission in the scene, and we can transform it. All these things work, although as a polish thing, we need to make it a little nicer. Okay, so there it is, and we can also add other submeshes very easily. So let's add another cube. Actually, let's cube. Why not? So add submesh. So now, as you can see, it complains loudly about changes. This down here and this. That's because any changes to the submeshes will generally cause all of your chunk level fracture settings to be wiped out. We'll get to that. So let's just delete that cube for now and show simple fracture. But since we've changed what's called the root submeshes, and it's not super smart about it, we have to do this again, because essentially it now thinks that these settings are incorrect, and you have to do this to make sure that it knows everything's fine. Okay, so in the case of multiple submeshes, if you have multiple submeshes and you click that button, what this actually does is generate a level 0 chunk, which has all of your submeshes combined into one mesh, and then X level 1 chunks with each of the submeshes as individual pieces. This is exactly the same thing that PhysX Lab does. It's a feature of the Destructible Mesh SDK. So let's try this out. So if you click on this chunk, you get to see that we have the individual chunk parameters. So this is stuff that was there before. This is new. You can set all of the destructible, the collision generation parameters per chunk. This is not always easy to get a good result with, but if you know what you're doing and you're willing to experiment, you can get exactly what you want, or at least exactly what you could potentially get from this API. It's not always going to give you exactly what you want. Okay, so let's try a simple fracture. We'll do Voronoi because that's the easy one. As you can see, we have all three. I'll show you them all, but let's try Voronoi first. So here's what it's asking you. First, it's asking you if you want an interior material. I think this is pretty neat, so let's do that. It probably should, default to something, but it just defaults to world grid if you don't put anything in there. So now, you have this UV scale. All the stuff in fracture material description is not super easy to get any kind of good result out of, because it's about the interior material, and it tends to be not that useful, but it's there just in case somebody knows how to use it in a brilliant way that I don't. So let's just close that. So this cell site count is the old cell site count. We'll just change it to 12, say, and it still says it's out of date, so let's fracture. That little red there means that this particular chunk setting is out of date. So let's fracture mesh. Okay, so now it takes a little second, and then you can see here in the chunk tree, we now have 12 chunks, and we have another preview depth. So let's just look at this first. By the way, the blue is the collision. So you can turn that rendering off, just like with this. For some reason, it doesn't immediately respond. I haven't figured that one out yet, but I like it. It's something the old editor did not have. So as you can see, we've got some pieces here with an interior material. It's pretty cool. All right, now you can also select individual chunks. You can do it in here as well. And you can select multiple chunks. This essentially allows you to then do something crazy, like I'm going to do right now. So let's do this. We'll select all of our chunks, and we'll go Voronoi again. Oh, hold on. You can see this. Cutout is no longer in the list. The reason that is because of a limitation in the API. Cutout will only ever work on a level 0 chunk. But we'll show that in a minute. Okay, so now we have all these Voronoi chunks, and we have one cell site count, which is probably what we want. And, I don't know, brick, something. Try that. It's probably going to have to compile the shader. Yep. Okay, it's compiled the shader. Now, so we just given it 1. Let's give it 2. Might be overkill. Anyway, let's fracture our mesh. Okay, so now, as you can see, we've got another level, and we can look in the tree, and we now have that. Okay, so let's look at what happens here. So, yeah, the camera's being a bit weird. Okay, so as you can see, we now have 2 different interior materials. There's the wood, there's the brick, and then of course the exterior Lambert material that I had on this cube initially. So there it is. Now, if you go back to here, the level 1 or level 2 chunks disappear. And then if you go here, obviously the level 1 chunks disappear. This doesn't do anything. All right, so that is Voronoi. I will now demonstrate slice after I stop for editing. Okay, we're back. Now, I want to show off the slice mode fracture. It's the second most complex fracture mode in the Destructible Apex SDK. And to make things simple, we will just use a very simple cube again and just show you off slice. Okay, so here it is. We'll do slice, bang. Now, a lot of the same stuff as before. Set the oak interior material because it's compiled already. I don't have to wait. Max depth. Now this is how many times recurs the slicing process. Essentially what that means is, okay, this order is in what order the axes are going to be sliced. So you'll get an X plane slice, a Y plane slice, and a Z plane slice. And you'll get all 3 no matter what. You just get to specify what order. This setting is completely undocumented. I have no idea what it means, but I've added it. Now, if you say max depth greater than 1, what it will do is it will slice your chunk in those 3 axes, and then it will recurse and slice the chunks that resulted again as many times as you've done this recursion. So it will dice your chunk pretty good for you. These are the splits on each slice axis, the angular variation on each slice axis, linear variation on each slice axis, and then the noise settings for each slice axis. And then, of course, you can set the noise mode as well. Yeah, so let's just do a very simple test. Okay, as you can see, it's made some chunks, and there they are. They've had the interior material, and they're the same. Okay, so now let's try some second order chunk making. Should we do a material? Yeah, just leave it world grid. I don't want to wait for the compile. Let's do cell site count and fracture. Okay, it worked. So now, if you look at the level 3 chunks, or sorry, level 2 chunks, it's only showing you chunks that are on this level. The reason it does this is mostly because this is the behavior of the physics lab, and also because you may just want to see that. So since there are no chunks of that level in the other ones, they don't show. Now here you're seeing my bug, or at least a bug, in the thing that's pretty common right now, unfortunately, and I wish it didn't happen, but I haven't fixed it yet. So what happens is, since the previous destructible meshes did not support materials more than 1, when I added that, I must not have added it correctly, because now for no apparent reason I can see the exterior material occasionally disappears. It will go away if you change your depth. Sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. I assume what's happening is
I don't know, maybe the materials being garbage collect. I don't know. Anyways, this is something I need Apex help with. That's why this thing is not ready. Well, one of the reasons why this thing is not ready for release. All right, so there we go. That's slice mode. Now I will quickly show you. Let's just start over again. Complete. I will quickly show you cutout mode, and you'll see some things. Okay, so now cutout mode is by far the most complicated of the three, and as of this video, doesn't work. The UI works, and you can run it, and it will do something sometimes, but most of the time it just crashes. Now this is because cutout mode is essentially completely undocumented, and the only way I've gotten as far as I have is with the help of a very nice NVIDIA engineer named Brian. And in order for me to progress any farther, I need the PhysX Lab source code, which NVIDIA has promised to get me, but hasn't yet. So let's show off cutout. Cutout is a very interesting mode. You can add, well, first of all, let's set oak because I like it. You can add a cut plane. So in this case, the cube, you can add 6 different cut planes, and you can tell it to move the cut plane around. So let's try. I'm just going to show it to you, and so you can maybe figure it out. So let's first of all let's find the fracture material. Where did I put that? There's the cutout texture. Okay, so this is an alpha. The way it works here is you specify some lines to cut on in a texture, and those lines should be positive alpha, and everything that you want to not be cut should be 0 alpha. So it's essentially, well, it is inside the SDK. It is generating a bit mask, a 1-channel 1-bit bitmap. Unfortunately, the client requires a lot more complicated stuff than that, and I've tried to simplify it as best as I can. So this cutout test is a very simple texture, which you'll see in a minute. Okay, so there. So if you see that, that's the cut plane. Got a little Z fighting there. So let's scale it so we can see it a little better. As you can see, it doesn't show the scale of the thing it doesn't care about. And so this arrow here is the cut direction. So these are local axes. So as you can see, it's -x, and that is the cut direction. And we're at 1.0, which means maximum cut. So we can move this around, and it changes the depth. And we can also move this around, which changes where it's going to cut. If anybody's used PhysX Lab in this mode knows that this is so much better, you don't even know. So now this is all the same parameters exposed. If anybody can tell me why this happens, why textures with alpha in them always show up as black in the thumbnails, I'd like to know. Anyway, that's just an aside. So you have tons of stuff to configure in this mode. This stuff is generally controlled by this, same as the height offset. Width invert and height invert, that flips the texture. I haven't implemented that yet because it's not clear quite how to implement it. And this, essentially, you can say, when I am not manipulating this texture, I still want you to show it so that, you know, for visual reference, essentially. If you want to move a couple cut planes, let's show what's happening here. So let's do, like, this now is depth 0.69, whatever. Let's add another one. Now you can only add one from each direction, so it's automatically going to add one in another direction that you haven't already used. And you know, so now this is depth 1 again. I'm not sure why it's defaulting to 1, but anyway, so there you go. And you can switch between them. If anybody's ever done this, you'll know that this particular detail, this is what's called a details customization, and it was really a bitch. I'm going to write a long article on how I did this because I think it's very useful information to have for anybody who does an editor. Okay, so anyways, that's literally all there is to it. I don't want to press fracture because it will almost certainly crash. This will be working in my next video. All right, now we're going to try multiple. Now we're going to show off multiple submeshes. So again, we'll go to our faithful cube, and there it is. So this is just a 100 by 100 cube, one of the basic assets. So let's give it a friend, because I want to show one of the very simple features that I wanted to use in my game that Destructible Mesh Editor didn't have, And the only way I could get it to happen at all was in PhysX Lab, which is very crashy and really unpleasant to use. So I added it. This is one of the reasons I added this functionality. So here we go. Let's add another submesh. Bang. So now you can't really see it because it's inside the other one, but there it is. Okay. Let's just quickly reset the transform, and now let's make it smaller. Right, so now it's 0.75, and we will flag it as a core mesh, and we will fracture. Okay, so what's going to happen is nothing, essentially. This is going to now has set the core mesh, but a core mesh means nothing in Apex unless you pair it with a level 0 Voronoi or slice. So you cannot use a core mesh at anything but level 0. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to set this exactly the same way that I did before. Oak interior material, 12 sites, or well, let's make it 17. I don't know, whatever, some other site. And then we'll go fracture, see what happens. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of chunks now. Right, so now it's going to be hard to see because the collision's in the way. So let's turn off the collision. So you can see that you got a nice hollow box. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, you can of course do a further fracture. 2, and then oak again. I'm not sure, but it seems like there needs to be an interior material. I may have messed that up. So here we go, fracture, and yeah, see, so now here's my bug again. It's not showing the exterior materials. My bad. Another thing I have to fix. So there it is. It's working in hollow. Now let's try a non-core mesh thing. So this can occasionally be a problem, but I'm hoping it won't be today. I'm working on 4.8, and it's not always the most stable since you're on the master. Let's just do this again. I'll add them. Yeah, so let's just delete our old one. Okay, try this again, and I will add them into the cube scene. So once you created if you created a destructible mesh with a static mesh, it doesn't mean anything. You can delete this. You know, you just go like this. I don't want this. Now, that's probably not a good idea, but you can do it. So now let's just add in the chair. And there it is. Okay, so you can just, as you've seen it in other demos, you can just fracture that, and it'll just work. So now let's add the table as well. Now, the thing with this is that PhysX destructibles have some limitations on number of vertices, number of bones, all that sort of thing. So the more complex you get, the more likely you're going to run into one of those limitations. And since this hasn't been QA'd, it might happen right now. Anyway, let's find out. So we have these two new meshes. Let's just make them happen. Oh, wow. Okay, so now this is the thing I was telling you about. It's basically have this level 0, which is the unified geometry. Now this level, oh great, that happened. Okay. Yeah, so now you can see that the explosion is essentially taking the two level 1 pieces and moving them away from each other. And I'm having material issues, as you can see. So now let's do what we do in all our simple demos, and we will shatter this. Material, 25, whatever, 24. And do your thing. Okay, we're back. I edited out the couple-minute wait while it chugged. Now let's see if it actually did something useful. Okay, so we have chunk 1 right there, separated out a bit, and then chunk 1 has 26 pieces. So when you specify this, it's per submesh, or specifically per chunk. So each one of these guys got broken into 26 pieces, I guess, although that doesn't quite match the cell site count. I think that doesn't mean anything. Anyway, so, whoa, okay, so as you can see, we have a pretty well shattered thing. Although, Yeah, okay, so what's happening there in that visual is that since all these chunks are on the same level, even though we're selecting this, and I was kind of hoping to see only the pieces of that thing, we're not. We're seeing all the pieces of both things at that level. So there it is. It is shattered. And let's do something else so I can show it to you. I will have to pause and edit again, but let's do this just because this is something you cannot do in any of the PhysX tools, but it is possible, and I added it because it's awesome. Okay, so let's change the scale. Okay, so now, and actually let's change the rotation too, why not? So, bing, bing, bing. It doesn't make any sense, but there it is. So now, we've changed the root meshes, so we have to do this again. Okay, so something terrible happened. There we go. Now, we're back down to the root chunks. We've wiped out our chunk settings, but as you can see, the chunks are correct. Now, except for that nice bug. Now, let's just fracture 1 this time, so maybe it doesn't take quite so long. Now, we'll go Voronoi and 12, because I don't want this to take forever. And oak interior material, and go. Now, one of the features I probably should add, there's many features I should add. I have a very long to-do list, but in this case, I'm probably wanting to add correspondence between this particular chunk label and the submesh. Because right now chunk 2 is not super helpful. I still want it labeled as chunk 2 because that is its index, and it's sometimes helpful to have that number, but I really should have it correspond. Okay, we're back. That was another minute or two. Now, okay, so you can see that it generated a bunch of level 2 chunks, but this time, although that collision is a little weird, it only did, well, that's level, yeah, alright, so, yeah, it's a bit weird collision, as you might expect. And nice bug. But yes, there it is. So now this is a fairly degenerate case. As you can see, PhysX hasn't really done a very good job of generating collision here. Yeah, there's not really so much you can do about that. Although in this case, I think it probably just had some points here that it probably shouldn't have had. Yeah, in any case, this is not an ideal case. I just wanted to show you that it could do this, and you can probably do some crazy stuff if you can get it to generate a result that you actually want to have. Now, I guess that's the end of my demo. I can't demonstrate it in game yet because there are issues with rendering and other issues that I will discuss in the thread that I'm going to start in the articles I post. I hope to get feedback from you guys on how I can improve this, not just in functionality, obviously fixing my bugs and that, but also usability and workflow. I want you guys to try this as soon as you can, which unfortunately isn't right now, and tell me what I've done wrong. Tell me how this sucks and how I can fix it. Once this thing is stable, it's going to be put in as a pull request to Epic, and then they have to probably generate a lot of work to integrate it into their code base. So we've got some time yet, but I'm very happy with what I've done here, and I want input from you guys. That's my demonstration. Thank you guys. Goodbye.